nothing falls down.
Nothing will fall down.
Welcome to Scott Peterson's early life.
What's up, Scott?
We are whining about crime, and we're opening our bottle. Today we have a Bay Bridge Red Blend. So I thought we just, since we started off with Bay Bridge, go ahead and go through their entire line of wines. So this will be their first red that we try. First red that I've ever tried from Bay Bridge. So we'll see how it is. So I guess I kind of made the executive decision that we will only be drinking wines under $5 because I like cheap wine. So Bay Bridge is $2.99 for the red blend. Their Chardonnay was $2.99 as well. Coming out of the bottle, it's a little light, but we'll see what happens.
Oh boy, am I excited.
All right. I already have the bottle.
Cheers, mate.
All right.
No sponsorship on the glass tonight. Just a regular.
Ross, I think.
Stemless. Fries, actually.
Oh.
That's actually really good.
First sip is pretty sweet.
I'm a sweet guy.
It
though,
almost
so
kind
that's
of
why I
tastes
like
like.
It almost tastes like a vintage bottle by Bay Bridge
I guess
Wineries.
it's pretty low alcohol percentage, 9%.
Frickin' wicked good.
Yeah. Like a mamba hair. Ew. Gross.
Friggin' got a Beantown hat on tonight, so had to throw in a little bit of an accent.
Ugh. My cat's hair is in my glass, so that's really good. Yeah.
Speaking of the cat, let me out.
Okay. All right, guys. So I forgot to include my disclaimer on this, so I can't read it word for word. But anyways, just understand that our views do not reflect the views of anyone involved in the case. And although I did a lot of research, it may not be 100% accurate. So if your life depends on it, maybe don't use the facts I gave you and look them up first. So
Have your own opinion.
pretty much. So, oh, this is really sweet.
Frickin' good.
All right, so the first thing we're going to go over, for those of you who don't know, Scott Peterson is the man who is currently convicted of killing his wife and his son, his unborn son. And he was convicted of this murder. I'm kind of back and forth on this. I think Tyler's kind of back and forth on whether or not we think he actually committed the murder, but we'll get into the facts. So first, we're going to go over Scott Peterson's early life. He was born in October on the 24th in 1972. He was born in San Diego, California. So he's a California boy. He was born to Lee Arthur Peterson, who owned a crate packing company. And then he was also born to Jackie, who owned a boutique. So both of his parents are kind of, they're both entrepreneurs. And you see that kind of later on in Scott's life as well. So Scott started playing golf at a very early age. And he kind of took after his father, although he wasn't the only son in their family. He wasn't the only kid in their family. He was actually the only kid that Lee Arthur and Jackie had together. So they both had a lot of different kids. So they had 6 children from previous marriages, but Scott was their only child that they had together. So it's kind of known that Scott's father kind of tried to mold him to be him. Even though he had other children, he was just kind of his like golden child, I guess. He wanted him to be exactly like himself. So by the age of 14, Scott could beat his own father in a round of golf.
Pretty good. Duke could probably beat me in a round of golf right now.
Probably. All right, and then by the end of high school, he was one of the top junior golfers in San Diego. So he was extremely good at golf. He actually attended ASU on a partial golf scholarship.
Forks up.
So yeah. Then he ended up getting kicked off the golfing team. So I'm going to read a little blurb here as to what happened. It's kind of confusing. But anyway, Randall Mell of the Broward County, Florida, reported that the chip coach, the father of Arizona State golfer Chris Couch, told Mell that he got Peterson kicked off the golf team. Couch stated that Peterson had taken Chris out drinking and to meet girls, resulting in a hangover for Chris, as Chris was the number one junior county. Chip did not want Peterson to threaten his son's future and complained to the golf course, who ended up kicking Peterson off the team.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, it was kind of confusing. But anyway, he ended up getting kicked off the team, and people believe that he was kind of set up to get kicked off the team. So he ended up at the California Polytechnic State University, and he initially planned to major in international business, but changed his major to agriculture business. All right. Also, one thing to know is a lot of his teachers and like his coaches, one of his teachers actually said like they would prefer a class full of Scots. So he was a very good and alert child and a very good student. So one thing to note.
Mamba making an early appearance.
All right, so Lacey and Scott meet. So this is kind of how they met. Scott was working at a restaurant in Morro Bay called the Pacific Cafe. One of Scott's coworkers would receive visits from the neighbor, Lacey Rocha. Lacey made the first move by sending Scott her phone number. Now, when she sent him her phone number, he kind of was like, yeah, right. She didn't actually want to talk to me. And then later she kind of came in and was like, yo, why didn't you call me? So she was kind of a very direct, open person. So she said, why didn't you call me? Later after that, we'll call it a confrontation. It wasn't really a confrontation, but later after that conversation,
Nice word. Webster.
Right after that, they ended up kind of dating. Immediately after meeting Scott, Lacey called her mom and said, I've met the man of my dreams, or I met the man that I'm going to marry. And Scott's mom, or Lacey's mom, was like, have you gone on a date with her? And Lacey was like, no, not yet, but I know he's the one that I'm going to marry. So let's see. Oh yeah, their first date was deep sea fishing. Lacey got seasick. Lacey did not like being on boats. She did not necessarily like that. So that's kind of a dark irony in this, is their first date was deep sea fishing.
In deep sea she was.
Oh, that was kind of brutal.
Not as brutal as the murder.
There's like one little hair. Freaking Mamba. All right. So this is going to be about Lacey and Scott's kind of early relationship into the mid relationship right before she disappeared. So as Scott and Lacey's relationship became more serious, Scott gave up his dream of becoming a professional golfer and started focusing on more of a business path like his mom and dad. So he kind of molded into his mom and his dad and started becoming the entrepreneur. So Scott and Lacey dated for 2 years and eventually moved in together. In 1997, after Lacey graduated, they were married in Avila Valley.
Beautiful place.
Scott was finishing his senior year. So prosecutors have stated that this was kind of around the time that Scott started one of his affairs. So Scott's had 2 affairs that we know of. He probably had a lot more, but that he's actually admitted to or people have found out about, he's had 2. So that's when he engaged in one of them, was kind of right around that time. So Peterson ended up graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in agriculture business in June of 1998. So after their graduations, the Petersons did end up opening a very successful sports bar that was in San Luis called The Shack. So they were kind of just living the life. I mean, they owned their own business. It was a restaurant. It started off not doing so well, but then, of course, once the nightlife started picking up, summer came around, then it was actually a very popular place. An interesting thing that happened was when the couple found difficulty finding a technician to install a vent in the restaurant. I think it was like one of the vents in the kitchen. Instead of like spending the time to find someone, Peterson actually took the necessary certification course and ended up just getting the certificate and installing it himself. So he was very much a go-getter. You could see that as he owned his own business, like gave up his golf to focus on his marriage. Like he was kind of a go-getter. Once he picked something, he kind of just stuck to it. So I guess kind of, not really.
He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, entrepreneur, I guess. All right, so the Petersons ended up selling the Shack in the year 2000 when they moved to Lacey's hometown of Modesto. Their plan there was to start a family. In October of 2000, they purchased a 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow house for $177,000. That'd be nice.
Future purchase.
Yeah. So it was in
different results.
Different results. So it was in an upscale neighborhood near La Loma Park. So Lacey ended up taking a part-time job as a substitute teacher, and Peterson got a job of Trade Corp. It was a fertilizer company, like a European fertilizer company that was trying to get its roots here in the U.S. He worked on a salary plus commission. He sold irrigation systems, fertilizer, chemical, nutrients, and related products to big farms, flower growers that were primarily in California, Arizona, and New Mexico. So he was kind of helping them get their feet in the U.S., so kind of towards the entrepreneur side. Okay. So this is kind of more comments about Lacey. A lot of her family said that she was really focused on her main goal was to be like a stay-at-home mom that took care of everything at home, raised kids. That was her goal in life. That was what she focused on. And they just would always mention how she focused on just becoming that perfect housewife. She enjoyed cooking, entertaining, and in 2002 they found out that Lacey was pregnant. So in November 2002, Lacey was 7 months pregnant, and Peterson were introduced to a friend of Fresno. Oh, this was when put this in the wrong place. Sorry, guys. So in November of 2002, Lacey was 7 months pregnant, and Amber Frey comes into the picture. So this is when Peterson was introduced by a friend to a Fresno massage therapist named Amber Frey. So we'll get into her later. But that was kind of part of the timeline here. Was 2002, she found out she was pregnant. Also 2002, Amber Frey comes into the picture. So, Scott's getting bored, I guess.
Very easy to do. Just remember. Hold on, I'm not done.
I'm waiting.
Just love how you want to be loved. And I will sip my wine after that.
Okay. All right, guys. So this is the disappearance of Lacey. So this is when shit hit the fan. As we stated in the other case, shit's hitting the fan. So December 23rd, 2002 at 5:45, Peterson and Lacey went to a salon. It was the salon of Lacey's sister. So she routinely did Lacey's hair. So there was a thing about a fruit basket. So Rocha Lacey said Peterson offered to pick up the fruit basket that she had ordered for her grandfather as a Christmas gift the next day because he would be playing at a golf course nearby. So on Christmas Eve, Scott kind of told everybody that he was going to be playing golf. So Lacey had said, hey, can you pick up this fruit basket, Lacey and her sister? It's for their grandfather as kind of a Christmas gift. So since the golf course was nearby, Peterson had said, okay, I'll go ahead and pick up this fruit basket. So that's kind of when it starts getting a little, this is a part that kind of sets off flags for me, is he's telling everybody that he's going to be golfing on Christmas Eve, and even goes as far as saying my golf course is next to a place for fruit baskets. So that's where it starts getting fishy, is when this golf course comes into play. So again, prosecutors did say Peterson told other people he was playing golf the day of Christmas Eve. So later that evening, Sharon spoke with Lacey on the telephone around 8:30 p.m. So this is the day before Christmas Eve on the 23rd. Peterson later told the police that he saw his wife at about 9:30 a.m. on December 24th when he left to go fishing. But previously he had stated he was playing golf. So he maintained that he was playing golf on December 24th, basically up until the police were like, hey, like, where were you? That's when he was like, oh, I was fishing. But he had told everybody else he was going to go play golf, and that he did end up playing golf. So that's where Scott starts looking very suspicious to me, was around this point. So the next morning, a female neighbor of the Petersons says she found the Petersons' dog, Mackenzie, who was a golden retriever, and so he was just running around, he was just out and about, and she took him and returned him to the Petersons' backyard about a half an hour later. Shortly after 10:45, another neighbor said he found Mackenzie wandering around the neighborhood with a muddy leash, and he returned him to the Petersons' yard. So this is 2 times that Mackenzie's now been returned to the neighbors, or to their yard. Peterson returned home that afternoon to find it empty and found Mackenzie in the backyard. And Lacey's 1996 Rover Discovery was in the driveway. He showered and washed his clothes because he got wet from fishing. So right now we're basically at the point where Lacey, the last time someone besides Scott has heard from Lacey was 8:30 on December 23rd. And then Scott claims last time he saw Lacey was at 9:30 a.m. on Christmas Eve, which is the 24th. And then Mackenzie, the golden retriever, has been returned to the backyard twice. So Mackenzie was out and about, returned out and about again with a muddy leash, and then returned back. So this is kind of a part where I was like, well, like, would Scott really to stage something? Is he smart enough to stage something to where he lets his golden retriever outside of the house with a leash on, and like lets him start running around to kind of stage what's coming next? So that's kind of another part where I'm like, because I don't know, that part's kind of fishy to me. Thoughts, concerns?
Lacey was walking the dog.
Yeah.
That's simple. We each have our own opinions. And I know the dog is being walked by Lacey.
One bottle down.
Bladder filling up.
Do not pee. All right. Ow.
Sorry. Mr. Peterson.
We'll let that soak in a little bit. Just kidding. Okay. All right. So now this is after, his pregnant wife's missing from the house. Her car's in the driveway. We haven't gotten to the part, but like her cell phone was still there. So, and then you just take off your clothes and put them in the washer and shower. Yes. So your pregnant wife's missing, car's still there, phone's still there, can't get a hold of her. And the first thing you do is, oh, my pregnant wife's gone, I'm going to take a shower. That part's fishy to me too.
She could have been anywhere. He just got home from a long day out. Every single day I come home, take my clothes off, put them in the hamper, not necessarily the washer, but then I take a shower right when I come home.
If you came home and my car was in the garage, my phone was on the counter, and you could not find me anywhere, you're losing your mind.
We have a 1,500 square foot condo. I don't think this really adds up to the house. I don't look for you when I come home, necessarily. You're always just in the door. Give you a kiss, go upstairs, poop, shower.
Regardless, it's a little weird that he would wait until 5:15 p.m. That's when Peterson didn't call the police, but called the mother-in-law.
This just in. My best friend Teeter. When should I be expecting the new podcast tonight?
Never.
Well, Teeter, we are currently filming it. Continue. Hey, Teeter.
All right, so Peterson didn't call the police, called the mother-in-law. And then half an hour later, that's when someone took some action. Lacey's stepfather, that he called the police. So Ron Grotsky, he decided that it was a good time to call the police. So that's 30 minutes after he found out she was missing. Scott has waited until 5:15, and then 30 minutes after the stepfather, he's like, crap, we need to call the police. I don't know. Fishy. That part's definitely fishy. All right, so Lacey was 7.5 months pregnant, as we stated before, with a due date of February 10th, 2003. The couple had planned to name the baby boy Connor, and the exact date and cause of Lacey's death were never determined. So we still don't know, even though there has been an autopsy, there's still no facts. There are facts that lean both directions, so we'll get into those later. So here's the whole part that I find fishy. This is going to be an excerpt because it was from a police standpoint. So after the police arrived at the Peterson's home, Lacey's keys, wallet, and sunglasses were found in her purse in a closet at the home on the evening of December 24th. The dining room table was set for family dinner for the following night. One detective found a phone book on the kitchen counter open to a full-page ad for a defense lawyer. So I'm sure that Scott, fiddling through his books for a defense lawyer, to me, that's not the first thing that comes to the mind the same day that your wife goes missing. If you're innocent, you're not going to go, oh crap, I need the name of a defense lawyer now. Like, okay, whatever.
Police can frame people, though. I mean, I highly doubt if anyone killed their wife and had police raid their house, they're going to leave a book out looking for a defense lawyer. So I'm just saying, OJ's glove wasn't unseen, then all of a sudden it was.
But there was a reason.
California!
There's a reason to frame OJ.
Be your own country next time. Get out of here.
There's no reason to frame a fertilizer guy. Some random fertilizer guy gets framed by the police.
To be continued.
All right. Anyways, so Scott had initially spent the day golfing. That's what he told the police that too. So that's what he said. He later finally told the police that he had gone fishing for sturgeon at Berkeley Marina. At 2:15 p.m., he left a message for Lacey saying, "Hey, beautiful, it's 2:15. I am leaving the Berkeley." Like, okay, you're putting your time in your voicemail. Weird. Peterson stated that he went fishing about 90 miles from the couple's Modesto home. Detectives immediately launched a search, but they were very surprised about Scott's behavior. They told ABC News on 2017, I suspected Scott when I first met him. Didn't mean he did it, but I was a little bit thrown off by his calm, cool demeanor and his lack of questioning. He wasn't, will you call me back? Can I have one of your cards? What are you guys doing now? He seemed very uninterested in the case. So, yeah.
I'm gonna throw a little curveball in there. So back in the day, you kids, Generation Z, might not know. Millennials know when they were children. You didn't really have cell phones, and it's actually courtesy to let someone know what time you're calling them because it's a house phone they're calling them on. So
Should have cell phone.
Well, I didn't know that.
So I'm gonna call you and be like,
Anyways,
hey Tyler, it's 2:15. I miss you.
Anyways, listening to my parents as I grew up and my grandparents, if they left voicemails, they would always leave a time. And as far as I know, they have not murdered anyone. So I'm just saying,
as far as we know,
it's courtesy to let someone know, hey, it's 2:15.
Start doing that.
I'm leaving the.
I call you.
If voicemails are out, FYI, by the way, unless you're on your deathbed and you want someone to hear your final wishes in your voice for the one last time, voicemails are out. If you get to a voicemail, do not leave one. Shoot a text.
Hey Tyler, it's 5:15. Please don't let my parents have an open casket.
If it says, yeah, exactly. That's very exactly. Save. Screen record.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys, so here's going to be more facts. This case is brutal when it comes to me looking down just because there's so many facts in this case that if they're not like perfectly aligned or like in order or how I type them, then I'm just going to lose my place. So this was January 17th, 2003. It became known that Peterson had engaged in 2 other extramarital affairs prior to Amber Frey. So that part I did not know. I thought it was 2 total. So there's 2 known before even Amber Frey. So there's 3 now known. That's what we know. I don't think that Scott was, I don't think there was only 3, honestly. I think he was a scumbag.
Play is gonna play.
Not saying that every scumbag is gonna go kill somebody, but like, whatever. All right, so Frey was approached by the police about Peterson, who she had just begun to date, after learning that he was actually married to the missing woman, obviously Lacey. So January 21st, 2003, a press conference. After that press conference is when the Rocha family publicly withdrew their support of Peterson. Oh, so up until this point, the Rocha family really liked Scott. Like they, obviously, like he was in the family. He was one of them. They very much supported Scott. But once they found out that not only had he had Amber Frey on the side, but before that there were 2 affairs, that's when the Petersons were just like, okay, no. And that's when they started to withdraw their support of him. Also, I know Lacey's brother had some very strong interviews and very strong comments to make of Scott after this. So, Lacey's brother Brent Rocha stated that although Peterson had admitted to an earlier affair a year earlier in January 16, 2003, phone conversation following Lacey's disappearance, Peterson had ceased communicating with the Rocha family in regard to what happened to her. They later said that they were angered not only by the affair, but by the fact that Peterson had told Frey that he had lost his wife. So, I think this was about a month before she was even missing. Scott told
it was December 9th.
Amber Frey that he lost his wife. This was before before she was even missing. That's scary. Sketch.
Lost me there, Scotty.
Oh yeah, and he said that he would be spending his first Christmas without her.
Without his family.
He would be spending his first Christmas without her. That's true, at least. Police later speculate whether this was an indication that Scott had already decided to kill Lacey, which this is something that Lacey's mom actually agreed with. She believes that him saying that was kind of him planning in his mind to lose his wife. So
I would concur.
Yeah, that's kind of sketchy.
Good job, Mom.
Moms know best. I have to. Cool. All right. All right, so Peterson's arrest. So Peterson was arrested on April 18th, 2003. near La Jolla Golf Course. So this is another part that's this is a funny part because I didn't include it all in here, but there's like excuses for all this stuff that Scott and his family comes up with. But let me just read this. So he claimed he was meeting his father for a game of golf. His naturally dark brown hair had been dyed blonde, and his Mercedes-Benz was overstuffed with miscellaneous items, including $15,000 in cash, 12 Viagra tablets, survival gear, camping equipment, several changes of clothes, four cell phones, his brother's driver's license, in addition to his own, and the Petersons. So Peterson's father, this is where they get into the explanation. So he has $15,000 of cash. He has a bunch of clothes. He's dyed his hair blonde. So survival equipment, camping gear, like maybe people keep that in their car. I know for a while I kept like a survival kit in my car, but I didn't have a bunch of clothes and like other IDs from other people in there, and $15,000 cash. Like, who has $15,000 cash just laying around?
You have that in savings.
True. So this is their excuse, at least for the ID. So the Petersons, so he said that they used the brother's license the day before to get a residence discount on the golf course. So they're saying that he had the brother's driver's license to get a residence golf discount. So I guess that makes sense, but
hey, whatever you can do to golf for cheaper.
But I'm just saying, like, then the mom came back and said she had accidentally withdrawn cash from Scott's account because they were joint. So I don't know if you guys know, like, have parents on your account. Like, I know I have an account with a parent on it, but they're saying that the mom accidentally withdrew from 15, I think it was 10, I think he had 5,000 extra, but withdrew like a good amount of cash from Scott's account, like by accident. Like, I know if I'm withdrawing $40, I'm like making sure it's from the right account. So you're saying you withdrew thousands of dollars on accident. So she said that she had to give it back to Scott in cash, because if you go and deposit it, it like raises red flags. But yeah, so that's sketch. So police, obviously, with all this stuff, the other identity, all the clothes, survival gear, cash, they kind of just concluded that he was trying to flee to Mexico. This golf course was very, very close to the Mexican border, and that's kind of what prosecutors settled on. I honestly agree with that. I think that was sketch. Like, why would he bleach his hair blonde? And his beard.
Guy's weird.
Mm-hmm. I guess killing someone makes you weird. Just kidding.
He didn't kill her, unfortunately.
All right, so that's kind of the gist of the timeline. So now we're going to get into like the more specifics. I'm going to go over some of the information we've already gone over, but I'm going to put it all in a timeline so it's easier to understand after Tyler gets the wine open.
I had to sneak it, but it's right here.
Bottle 2.
Swiss knife.
Hey.
What? Are you jealous?
Honestly, I feel like this wine reminds me of kind of a little less intense Stella Rosa.
Ooh, Stella.
Yeah, for sure. Their Stella Rosa, I feel like this is like a kind of their black version. Stella Rosa Black.
Can't say black.
I have no other word for that.
African American.
The dark bottle. So, it's sweet. I think it's too sweet for my liking, but.
Oh, got mamba hair all over this too.
Yep.
It might be too sweet for her, but like I said, if you're sweet,
Hey, whoa. Jeez.
You know what sweet things are, and you like them. And I am sweet. Maybe not every day.
Depends on the day.
I said maybe not every day. Every day I come home with a surprise. You tell me what's sweet.
Yeah, true.
Surprise, I got a pack of M&Ms for me.
Yep, this is true.
No.
All right, guys, so crime timeline, December 24th, 2002. Lacey Peterson, 8 months pregnant, is reported from her Modesto home by his husband, Scott Peterson. This is not true. So she was not reported missing. She was reported missing by her stepfather. That was December 24th, 2002. So that's when Scott found her as missing, I guess. So December 28th is the first time authorities searched the water near Berkeley Marina. December 31st is Modesto police shift their focus on foul play. So that's when they kind of state that it is foul play. So 24th she goes missing, 28th Berkeley Marina, 31st is when they ruled foul play. January 3rd is when they start asking around for Scott's whereabouts, kind of when they start putting together Scott's alibis, if he has any alibis. January 24th is when authorities and friends expand the search to Southern California, so they're now searching Southern California. January 17th, Lacey Peterson family and friends hold news conference to demand Scott Peterson to tell authorities everything he knows about the case. So from December 24th up until January 17th, Scott had most of family's support. This is when they publicly basically demanded Scott to tell everything, when they started publicly stating that they did not find him as innocent as they thought. So January 18th, that's when, as suspicion of Scott Peterson grows, authorities investigate his whereabouts in connection with the disappearance of another woman in 1996. So this one I don't agree with. Basically, they started trying to connect him with other cases. They tried to connect him with a different murder that happened in 1996 just because Scott Peterson and Lacey Peterson lived somewhere. At this point, when I heard this, I was like, just focus on the case. Like, stop trying to, like, we haven't even like convicted Scott of being guilty. Like, why are we already moving on to other people? But anyways, January 19th, Scott Peterson brings search for missing wife to Los Angeles, where he and his family distribute flyers to volunteers at a hotel. January 23rd, Lacey Peterson's family says Scott Peterson told authorities he had been involved with another woman. So January 23rd is kind of when the whole Frey situation came out. January 24th is when Frey confessed she had the romantic relationship. January 28th, Scott Peterson admits he did have a relationship with Amber Frey. And this is when Scott told everybody, basically, he televised it, that he told his wife, and she stated that just because he had this affair, it wasn't anything that would break us apart. So at this point, I was like, what? If you're 8 months pregnant with a man that then says I'm having an affair, she's just like, oh, it's okay.
Great understanding.
What?
She's understanding. It's great.
Oh, yeah. Allegedly, she's very understanding. So, on February 5th, Lacey Peterson's family steps up their criticism of Lacey Peterson, saying he sold his pregnant wife's car and considered selling the couple's house. So this part I kind of understand. They held Scott's truck in kind of a limbo. The police kind of held his truck. He needed to get to work. For some reason, Lacey's car wasn't working, so he tried to sell it. So that part makes sense to me. I don't find that any kind of, I don't know. I don't feel like that points any fingers at him, honestly. Let's go back. All right, so now we're kind of rounding about the expected due date, which was February 10th. So that was obviously a very sad day because that was when Connor was supposed to be born. So on February 17th, Scott Peterson's mother, Jackie, she starts to throw in her little 2 cents here. And she thinks that Lacey Peterson was abducted by kidnappers with the intention of holding her captive until she delivered the baby. I don't know where that came from. It's like, where are you on your phone?
Gotta get my stimulus check.
All right, so March 6th, Modesto police officially declared the case a homicide. And that was, March 6th is when they declare the case a homicide. March 12th, authorities searched the San Francisco Bay again. So that was March 12th. And then finally, we're jumping about a month ahead of time. Sorry, there's a lot of dates on here. The body of the woman and male fetus washed ashore in Richmond, California. So that was April 14th. So April 18th is when they found Scott at the border. And then April 21st is when Scott Peterson pleads not guilty. So that is all of those. And then we have a bunch of other ones from the case. So far we basically have Lacey's family supporting Scott, basically saying no, he would never do that. Then all of a sudden this Amber Frey girl comes into the picture. And not only was Amber Frey like in Scott's life, there was one point where there was a memorial for Lacey and Scott Peterson. So they had Amber Frey's phone tagged for a while, so it would record all the calls between her and Scott without Scott knowing. And it was going on for a while. At the memorial of Lacey and Scott, or Lacey and Connor, he was on his phone like moments before, basically talking to Amber Frey, saying he was in a different country with these friends celebrating New Year's and he was having a good time partying, but really he was like getting ready to have the memorial for his wife and his unborn son. So that's kind of depressing. And then we have Scott obviously fleeing the country, but not fleeing the country because he had excuses for everything. So then after the affair, Scott telling this mistress that he lost his wife a month before she was even missing, and then him basically fleeing the country when he wasn't in it or wasn't guilty. So yeah. Thoughts?
He didn't kill her.
Well,
he was part of it, but he didn't kill her.
yeah, I don't.
He hired someone. That's what the $15,000 cash was for. He was going to pay him.
It's
I
true.
don't know who killed someone for $15,000.
I'm gonna put away the facts for now. But
Facts aren't important.
so,
Opinions are.
Yeah.
If you're not opinionated.
We're going to get into the more of the opinion thing because there's so many different facts and timelines in this case that honestly listening to some people talk about it, taking hours, it's really kind of boring and annoying. So that'll be all the facts and stuff. We'll just talk about it now. So at the end of the day, they really did not have any forensic evidence on Scott. They had a neighbor see him load umbrellas into the back of his truck. They had the receipt from Berkeley Marina basically showing he went to Berkeley Marina. They had Scott with this fisherman's boat that people were saying that Lacey didn't know anything about. And then all of a sudden he has this boat and he's loading stuff in it and going into Berkeley Marina. He's fishing, but some people think he wasn't fishing. He was dumping the body. There's so many different views from this, but at the end of the day, the conviction of Scott Peterson, in my opinion, was complete horse crap because they did not have any forensic evidence. You're supposed to prosecute someone when there's no reasonable doubt that he committed that crime, and there was so much doubt. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that she was pregnant and it was a baby involved, and so I think that probably emotionally hindered this case for a lot of the people making these decisions. I don't think that this was a very fair case for Scott. But so we'll get into some of the kind of the manners of death that people see. So Scott did buy concrete before he was pouring allegedly an anchor for this little boat that he had, and that makes sense because anchors for boats are expensive. They can get up in the hundreds of dollars for a little teeny one for your little metal boat that he had. And when I'm talking about a boat, it's not like he had a yacht. He had like a little metal boat. So it's not rare. I think my grandpa did it. It's not rare for people to make their own anchors. So he bought concrete. He made like these little anchors, put them on a chain for his boat. But making a little teeny anchor and then buying a huge bag of concrete, that doesn't really make sense. So what a lot of the theory that was used in court is Scott made 4 to 5 of these anchors, and that's what held down Lacey's body. Because when Lacey's body was found, it was not found as a whole body. It was found, they haven't found her head. It was found without arms. It was found without leg. She had been tied down. So what they're saying is basically Scott made all these anchors with all the extra concrete and tied her to the bottom of Berkeley Marina, where eventually, after all the marine life and everything, then parts of her body obviously just came to the surface. Other parts were still held down, which is very morbid, and I apologize, but this is what the theory is that Scott had made these anchors and tied her down with them. So the way that Lacey's body was found and the way that Connor's was found was completely different. Lacey's was in horrible condition and Connor's was very well preserved. So there's multiple kind of theories. Some people think that Lacey was held captive, and she was held captive until she delivered Connor, and then when she delivered Connor, she was thrown into the water, and then Connor was later disposed in the water. But there is forensic, like there's facts basically showing that women that are in water can, or even dead after a while, like their bodies and gases push out a baby if it's inside of them, which is sad. So some people also think that she was just in the water so long that eventually Connor was pushed out. So her stomach and everything inside of it kind of contained Connor for the time being. So that's why Connor was in much better condition. So there's 2 different kind of sides to that. Connor was also found with like a piece of twine wrapped around his neck. So that's a big area of debate, whether it was just happened to like be a part of trash that ended up around his neck, or whether it was put there by somebody, which if it was put there and tied there by somebody, takes out the fact that Scott had anything to do with her disappearance. So yeah, it's kind of the facts readings I have right now on the death aspect of it, because I mean there's multiple ways it can go.
Well, the facts are that there were witnesses throughout this whole case. And the witnesses basically were not heard. They were kind of shunned, I guess. Like, they didn't really listen to the witnesses. There were witnesses that Lacey was walking the dog at 10:30, 10:45.
Like
yeah, 5 witnesses.
It was like 4 or 5 people. And
this is at 10:30, 10:45. a.m. There was also her neighbors that witnessed her as well, walking the dog, and there were witnesses at the marina that saw Scott riding his boat into the harbor, and they said that there's no way there was another body on that boat. And
this was not a big boat. It was like a little metal
tiny
boat. And so
there's also this has been gone through, like, this should be a 4-hour podcast. This is quick. So there's also, like, there's so much missed, but we're just trying to get through it quickly. But there was a robbery across the street from Scott's house the same day homegirl went missing.
Yeah, so
the cops said it was the day before. It was the 23rd.
Yeah.
But there were reporters. No, did they say it was 23rd or 24th?
So
no, the cops said it was.
No, so they said it was on the. So they said it was the morning of the 24th that this robbery took place, and people saw the robbery took place, and then all of a sudden they came back and the police said, no, the robbers said no one else saw, so everyone saw them on the 24th. And they said it was completely possible that these robbers, because Lacey was a bold person, she would have probably gone up and been like, yo, what are you doing? This is my neighbor's house, they're out of town, like, you're robbing them. Now, if you're going to confront someone about this and they're like, shh, 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 and she's like, no, I'm making a scene, what are men going to do with a woman who's freaking out? They're going to take her and throw her in the back of the car and shut the door and then figure out what they're going to do with them later. So that's one of the biggest theories. But so they're saying the neighbor that actually saw the robbery took place, or saw it be sketched, saw these people at this house, they're saying it happened the 24th. And then they taking these robbers, and the robbers are like, no, I did this on the 25th. But the first thing they said when they took him into the police station is, I had nothing to do with that pregnant woman's disappearance. First thing they said. They're saying, no, I did this on the 25th. Okay.
However, at this time, there's reporters
everywhere
outside of Scott Peterson's house. And even the reporters, like, if a robbery took place, we would have seen it. We were outside the house, and it was literally the house across the street.
Yeah.
They said that there's no way it happened on the 25th. If they robbed the house, it was on the 24th. And the cops basically threw it out. They didn't care to listen to that. And that's where I feel like he kind of got snubbed, because I feel like a witness should have a lot more say in it than just you making up your own thing of what happened. If a witness saw it, several witnesses saw it, then 100% you should believe the witness. I believe if it's several. If there's just one and it's like a buddy of theirs, whatever. But there's several, and then you have a robber saying, no, didn't happen that day. We did it on the 25th, blah, blah, blah. So basically, they're now siding with the robbers. Hey, nope, they're good people. They told me exactly when it happened. I know for a fact that they did not have anything to do with Lacey Peterson, because we already have Scott, and we're going to go with Scott because the robbers, who are already criminals, let me know, a police officer, that they had nothing to do with it. So I'm going to 100% believe them.
Yeah. I mean, what's so damning in this case for Scott is all the sketchy stuff he did. He just was so sketch. Like the whole golfing thing, and then turned out to be fishing, and then the whole I'm gonna run to Mexico, and regardless of if maybe I really don't at the point that they investigated the house at first, though, they did not have a reason to push it on Scott. So if his book was open to a defense lawyer, that's the sketchiest thing not in this case, but that's one of the sketchiest things to me, because if someone I love is missing, and someone that I truly care about is missing, I'm not going to sit there and the first thing I'm going to do is at this day and age, go to my search history and look up the best defense lawyer. I'm probably Googling what to do if a person's missing. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't know. So
speaking of Googling, homegirl, they brought up her computer history, and she was doing research on her computer for stuff she would want. I believe it was sundresses that she would buy.
She was looking up a sunflower umbrella. So
yes,
she loves sunflowers.
And this was already beyond the point where Scott had left for the day.
Yeah, so we know for a fact that Scott had left at 9:30 or somewhere around there. Like, we know that's when Scott left. The problem with everyone saying that Scott basically took her, loaded her in the back of his car at 9:30 is that people saw her walking her dog. And it wasn't just like some old guy sitting and be like, oh, there's a pregnant lady. It was like 4 or 5 people that were like, we saw her here, we saw her here, we saw her here.
It was,
and the whole everywhere people said was the exact trail she followed. So it was like one person here said something, one person here said something, one person here said something, and one person here.
There was a lady smoking on a patio that heard these 2 guys tell Lacey to shut that damn dog up because her dog, Mackenzie, was barking at the guys supposedly. And this lady heard these 2 men yell at Lacey to shut that dog up. Like, it's hard to just avoid the witnesses in this story. Whether my personal opinion, like if Scott had something to do with it, he paid someone to eventually do it, because with all the witnesses and their stories and their timelines, Scott has been gone.
Yeah, this case is such a...
It's just so weird.
It's like such an inner turmoil because you have Scott going to the Berkeley Marina while they're searching it, not helping them or being like if someone I love was missing and they're like, oh, they might be in the Berkeley Marina, I'm like, give me a life jacket, we're going. And I'm sitting there watching them like trying to help, but he was just like sitting on the side with his hands in his pockets, like almost like seeing if they would find her. It's almost like a dog burying a bone, and then you're going and digging it up, and they're just sitting back like, oh crap, like you're gonna find it. So it's not like he was.
At the same time, though, I feel like everyone copes in different ways. I don't want to defend him much, but
he coped back in early December when his wife was
yeah, missing. But we don't know how we would act. We can say all this stuff, but the truth is we don't know. And then at the same time, if you didn't do it, and now all of a sudden you're going to prison for life because they're gonna let you know that you did it and go in front of a jury, and he's gonna find you guilty. Like, maybe that's why he was trying to go to Mexico. Maybe he's like, yo, I'm out. I didn't do it, but I don't want to go to prison, so I'm just gonna try. I'm trying to leave and just move on with my life. So I mean, there's so many crazy things that went on, and eventually I just hope there's always like a letter when people pass, just being like, yo, I did this is what happened, like, you guys suck for not finding out, blah blah blah. I really wish that happened in some of these cases.
Yeah, where's those crazy people who like listen to spirits? Where aren't they at Scott Peterson's house trying to figure out what happened to this poor lady?
Because they're not real. They just make money for it.
Well, because like none of us know, and that's the saddest part about this case is, like, regardless of Scott and his innocence and guilty and whatever, like, you still have like this poor pregnant woman who was like groomed and wanted to be this perfect housewife, wanted this baby so much, and then you have this poor little baby who like wasn't even born yet. And it's at this point, it's not just there's a baby. There could have been a baby 2 weeks from then, and it's just so sad that you have this woman that's literally spent her whole life planning for this and this newborn baby, and then nobody knows. Like, we don't know what happened. Nobody knows. Like,
here's an idea.
Maybe Scott knows, but
this is wild. This is wild. She found out about the affair. Whether she found out or he told her or whatever, she found out. She's like, F you. I'm out. I'm taking our kid with us. You're never going to see either of us again.
Put the wine opener down, please.
That was her way of like, hey, I'm gonna set you up. You're going to prison forever.
Oh, like that movie. What's that movie with the blonde girl in it?
Yep.
Where she like fakes her own death and sets her husband up?
Oh, Legally Blonde? Just kidding. Gone Baby.
Gone Baby. That's a bomb movie.
Something, yeah. Ben Affleck, Boston.
I didn't even think about that.
Beantown. I just made that up on the spot. Whether it's the wine.
Too much wine. But at the same time, though.
About to explode. Hey, I'm just saying, women be tripping. I'm serious. Like, you don't know. Like, postpartum's real. What about prepartum?
Prepartum? I don't think prepartum exists.
It might in this case. Let's bring it back. We should go call. If you're listening, Scott, I got you. She set you up.
No, he's a scumbag.
No.
He's still a scumbag. Regardless, Scott is a scumbag.
Just wanted to go golfing with his pops. And his brother. If I could go golfing with my dad and my brother right now, I would go in a heartbeat. Right? I don't care if I sank my wife to the bottom of the ocean.
He wishes he could take me down.
It's true. She's a jiu-jitsu artist.
But I just feel like there's just so many ways this thing can go. Because there's so many, I don't know. There was one point, though, I forgot to put this in here, but there was a Christmas party that Lacey Peterson had with her, like that she had to go to, and one that Amber Frey had to go to, and Scott left his pregnant wife to go to her Christmas party alone, and then went to Amber Frey's Christmas party. So that whole thing's messed up. Gross. But there's just so many ways it can go as far as the disappearance, and then as far as the death, and then I don't know, there's just so many different ways. It's just crazy. And I have kind of been back and forth because you watch these documentaries and you watch like things, you listen to things. People are so dead set in one way that you finish their documentary, you're like, this is what happened. And then you watch the other one back to back and you're just like, this couldn't have happened. Like what? There's one that was like, they tested it to see if Scott's metal boat could even handle the weight of someone being thrown out of it. So they had somebody that weighed the same weight as Scott and basically like, I don't want to say a bag of potatoes, but like they actually had like a body kind of like made of Lacey's exact weight, and they tried to push it out of the boat, and the boat kept almost tipping over and almost tipping over or tipping over. And then so there's that one, and then I'm like, well, Scott couldn't have pushed her out of this boat unless he like picked her up and walked her over, but at the same time the boat would kind of start to, so I was like, okay, so this couldn't have happened. And then the next one, it was like, well, they didn't even use Scott's boat. They didn't even use, or they were trying to make the boat tip over, blah, blah, blah. So it's like every documentary you watch is like completely in one direction that I think me and Tyler have kind of settled on the fact that like I feel like Scott had a part in it. I don't know if it was like a ransom case where it's like, Scott, you need to pay money, and he's like, yo, kill her for me. Just kidding, but not really. And then, or it was like a hitman situation where it's like, hey, I'll give you X amount of money to kill my wife for me. But because I feel like Scott knew, because he was so sketch about literally everything in this case. Like the fact he said he was going golfing and then went fishing. Like that's completely two separate things. And then one documentary said Lacey knew nothing about the boat. And then another documentary says, oh, well, someone actually saw her at the warehouse, saw Scott showing her the boat. So I'm like, well, does she know about the boat or does she not know about the boat? Regardless, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. But you see that there's so much contradicting each other that it's just like, I don't know. I think that Scott being convicted of murder I don't think it was the worst thing to happen, because if he had the trial and then they convicted him, or they didn't convict him of murder, then he would have just been set free regardless of future evidence. Like they can't come back and nail him for the case after he's already not been convicted of it. So I don't know. I just hope that, I really think there's going to be a chance for him to appeal, and I think he's going to get a really good shot at appealing this case, because I don't think that there was like a piece of hair on pliers. Like that was only forensic evidence in this case. Like a piece of hair on pliers. And I'm thinking, like, every single item in my house has a piece of my hair on it. Like, I shed like a dog. So I would think that one of Scott's tools has one piece of hair on it. Like, it should. If he's living with a woman, like, we shed like crazy. I'm surprised everything wasn't covered in his freaking car. So I don't know.
Well, we want to know your opinions. So like, subscribe, comment, let us hear your opinions. And we don't know who we're doing next, but it'll be a good one.
I think we're doing pal.
Pal, what's up, pal?
We'll see.
What's up, Doe? All right, she's Kenna. I'm Tyler.
Just whining about crime.
Whining about crime
With Mamba.
with moms. See you later.